On Saturday, the Christmas special here on Talk Radio with the Times. Know your times. Thank you so much to James Cooper for Christmas around the world. But there is one place where Christmas is celebrated absolutely properly, and that, of course, is in the royal households, Sandringham, Balmoral, wherever they happen to be. And who better to fill us in on that than Grant Harrold, former Royal Butler. Hello, Grant.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you? Well?
I'm very well. Have you had your invitation to Sandringham to join the Queen for Christmas?
Well, I thought that with Prince Philip being hospitalised, I might leave them be this year. So it's Sandringham at Christmas, is it?
Yeah, traditionally. I mean, there's been a couple of Christmases at Windsor Castle, but the kind of tradition is that they normally go to Sandringham, which is a tradition that goes back quite a few decades now.
It's an incredible place, and I've driven past it. It's up in Norfolk, isn't it?
It is. It's beautiful. It's quite a large property, and some people don't realise that part of it was demolished in the 1950s, 60s by the Duke of Edinburgh, as some of it had started to fall into disrepair, and they decided to have part of it kind of taken away. So, but it's still it's quite a large house.
It's a large house with a big garden, and it was 20,000 acres or something.
Exactly. Hence why they have the garden parties in the summer.
Yeah, it's a massive, good old place. Now, let's get this absolutely nailed on. The Queen, is there still a royal train, or she just go up to King's Lynn on the 842 from Paddington or something?
There is a royal train, very much, that's still used, but this again is a tradition from King's Cross to King's Lynn. The Queen makes the journey every year, as you quite rightly noted. I don't know why they don't use the royal train for that, but as you said, that's exactly how she travels with the other commuters.
But she has her own carriage, presumably.
I would have thought so.
Well, you'd have to for security.
I've not actually travelled with her, but I imagine she would have her own kind of area, so that she's obviously got a little bit of, more than anything, not for privacy, just for security.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can be as Republican as you want, but you still, you have to. No, you have to live in the real world. So you need security, but it's still a wonderful thing that hundreds of people would have got on that train going from King's Cross to King's Lynn and thinking, well, the Queen's on the same train as us. She might be having her tea might be nicer.
Well, and you can also rest assured it was the most secure train in the country at that moment in time. So it's a very safe journey.
Exactly, yeah. So she goes to King's Lynn and then she gets the car. So you've never been there to Sandringham?
I have. Oh, yes, absolutely. I've never been there for Christmas. We used to get Christmas off. Can you believe it? The butlers for the Prince got Christmas off, but the Queen's got her own staff that would travel to Sandringham, and they'll be up there a few days before to kind of get everything ready. And then the Queen also arrives a few days before the family because she's an excellent hostess and she wants to make sure that everything's ready for the family to arrive. And the family traditionally, normally, I mean, they can arrive anything from the 23rd, but traditionally they'll get there for Christmas Eve.
Now this year, of course, they're not all going to be there, are they?
No, and this is obviously what I like the rest of the country been kind of reading, that obviously the Duke and Duchess of Sussex aren't going to be there, and people have said to me, well, that, what would the Queen feel about that? Well, she's very aware, as the family are, that with most families, the family is growing. They've got the family have got other families that they want to spend Christmas with, and she'll completely understand that. But the Queen is very, very family orientated. So, of course, like any great grandmother, they're going to want the grandchildren, the great grandchildren, their children with them at that special time. But as I said, they've got other families. I'm kind of hoping, though, as they get older, obviously the Queen and the Duke, that maybe the family will spend future Christmases with them, because at the ages of 93 and 98, they're getting on.
Well, let me say this. I think you're very understanding on the Queen's behalf there, and I'm sure she, of course she understands the way the world works. But we're not royalty in my family. All right, we're not royalty at all. We're nowhere near. I've checked. I'm not even in the lineage. But I promise you this.
Are you sure?
I promise you this. The day either of my kids say, Yeah, Mum, it's just that, we've got this other thing going, so we'll pop round maybe the day before and we'll try. No, the day they're not there on Christmas Day, all hell will break loose. I promise
I think that's the same for quite a lot of families. Families are, it becomes quite a, well, of course it is. It's a family time, and it is all about being with family. So I think some families do take it, can find it very upsetting, which I think is also why some families spend time with one family one year and another family the other year. But do you know what? It can lead to wars.
Yeah.
It can be serious stuff.
Yeah. I promise you, neither of my kids are married yet, but, they have their partners involved, but no marriage. But my wife's rule will be, yes, I'll tell you what we'll do. You spend this Christmas with us, okay, and then next Christmas, spend that with us, and then the Christmas after that, tell her parents, you're spending that with us.
I think you need to put an agreement in place now and get it signed on the dotted line before we get any further, so that you know that's guaranteed.
Yeah, it will be the weirdest prenup that's ever been presented.
That's forward. We'll all spend it at our house, no matter what happens in the future.
So, Christmas. I see, because we've got the Crown now, and what's it, Downton Market? What was it called? That Stewie, that thing, Downton Abbey. One thing we do know about the upper crust is that they are very attentive to their staff, and that they do things for the staff, around the Christmas period, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was in the Crown that they all went and served them tea or something.
Oh, I love that. I haven't had that happen to me, but I love that idea. But no, as you said, they're very good with staff at Christmas. I mean, obviously we get given personal gifts, and actually last night there was a certain television programme on that I was in, and I actually showed some of these gifts that I was given over the years. So we would get as presents, obviously Christmas card, hand-signed Christmas cards, Christmas pudding. I used to get a Christmas pudding as well, so I know all about the Christmas pudding. I've still kept the bowls from the Christmas puddings. And then, of course, there'd be a staff Christmas party, possibly even there's been a couple of balls at the palace that I've attended over the years as well. So even in recent years since leaving. So it's quite a nice way for the royal family to thank their staff and to show that it's not, they can appreciate what they've done for the whole year through. And the gifts that I was given, I treasure them. I very rarely do I ever kind of show them, but as I said, I showed them in this programme the other night. But I always keep them because they're quite special and nice memories. I remember actually when I was given them and where.
I know, we saw the programme. Don't worry about that. I was straight on the phone to my producer saying, I think we might have a problem with Grant. He's on the telly now. We're in trouble here.
Was this with the Christmas cracker jokes? Unfortunately, I found the Christmas cracker jokes hilarious. I think to the amusement of the film crew, and I see they kept them in. So all my friends have found this very funny.
Weird. So, talk us through. This is what happens in my house. Although, funny enough, we get a bit of a lie now because the kids are grown up, although we'll be up early for the dog. When does it start, Christmas Day?
Well, Christmas Day, it's all about the church, isn't it? What people don't realise is the royals have their Christmas presents on Christmas Eve, which is a German tradition. It's again, the royal family have done this as far as I'm aware back to the time of Queen Victoria, and it normally takes place during their afternoon. So between 4 and just after 6.
Now, sorry, Grant, hang on a second now. Is this, because this was the other fabulous thing about the programme, is this the silly presents? The novelty presents?
The novelty presents. So this is what I understand is, like, as we've read and heard about over the years, that they give novelty presents. I read a fantastic, I think it was mentioned in the programme, a wonderful comment about the late Diana, Princess of Wales, who gave a rather serious gift to a member of the royal family. I can't remember what Princess Anne or who it was.
Apparently it was Princess Anne, and it was a cashmere sweater.
There we go. And she got some gimmicky, fun gift in return. And I always remember reading that and thinking that because what do you give people that have got everything? And even when I was there, I used to kind of think, what do you give? What do you buy? So it's a real tricky one. So yes, as far as I know, it's these novelty fun gifts. I still think that they will give serious, if you like, or gifts for each other and for the kids as well.
Yeah.
But I just think that when they're obviously together for this fun afternoon tea, this is when they have a bit of fun, which is quite nice to think. They have a bit of humour and fun with it. I like this idea a lot. And then obviously Christmas Day is very much all about the famous church service, where we see them all walking, obviously driving the Queen over to the little church and then having the service. I understand that the Queen goes to two services. I think she goes to one before the one that we all see her go to, and then obviously then attends the one that we all know about. And the rest of the day, I think, for the Queen and the royal family is very private. I mean, obviously, like the rest of us, it's all about family and good food and obviously having a drink as well. And that might then be the opportunity, I'm guessing, for the youngsters to then get the traditional Christmas gifts from Father Christmas, possibly.
But traditional dinner, turkey?
I would like to think so. Again, not 100% sure. I have a feeling there could be turkey and goose, because goose was a traditional offering. So I have a feeling there'll be a few things on offer, and I'd like to also think there'd be a Christmas pudding. But whether they still put the farthings or the old money into it is another question. I don't think I'd like to be spending, especially the Queen at her age, would be fighting on a coin or something. But I'd like to think they still keep those kind of traditions going.
I would imagine health and safety have got their ugly hands on that now.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's not such a good idea to fight the Queen having a problem with coins or something in Christmas pudding.
That was always the greatest moment of my life, though, finding the sixpence in a Christmas pudding.
There you go, a sixpence, yes. I mean, I love that. As you said, I think health and safety. I don't think that's going to happen these days, sadly.
So... and then they have the Boxing Day is quiet, and when do they? Yes. They kind of don't do the 12 days of Christmas full through. Because they need to get back to work. So how long are they there for?
From what I understand, they're only there, I think, to Boxing Day. There used to be a Boxing Day shoot, which I don't think is happening this year. But there used to be a Boxing Day shoot, and I imagine pretty soon after the following day, that's when they would all go to their respective families, or well, that's what I think. They go to obviously their other families, or just have their kind of quiet time. But the Queen and Prince Philip stay at Sandringham normally until around about the middle of February, and the reason being her father, George VI, died at Sandringham in February, and she normally stays until after the anniversary. I also understood, again, and this is what I've read, and some of you listeners might actually know this, but I read somewhere that the Queen actually keeps the decorations up until she actually leaves. And of course, there is a tradition that after the 12 days of Christmas, that Christmas decorations should be taken down. So again, I don't know if this is a royal tradition where decorations get kept up for longer. It's one of those unknown things which, maybe one day we'll find out.
It's definitely something I've read. Yeah, it's something I've read. But as you said, that's the wonderful thing about the royal family is that, of course, we know so much about them now. They're in the papers, and we got the press, and yet the one thing we also know for certain is there's a lot we don't know about them.
There is. It's very clever, because we do see, we get a great insight into their lives, which is wonderful, because people ask me, it's nice to be able to kind of be able to answer questions because it's in the public domain. Even the other week, they were talking about Prince Charles enjoying his Earl Grey tea and honey, which, 20 years ago was something that people would never have known. Unless you had tea with the prince, you would never have known these kind of things. So it's quite nice that people get this insight, and they understand what goes on behind closed doors. I think it's really important, because at the same time, it's good having a little bit of secrecy. I think that's equally just as nice. But then with most of us, we obviously want a privacy, and I think it's important that the royal family have that. But being in the public view, people want to know more about them, and I think it's really nice that the way they do this and that they give people that insight. I think it's important for the future of the monarchy, really. Personally, that's kind of what I feel.
Yeah. Grant, let me ask you this. I'm fascinated. There's something that I love. Maybe because I'm, very working class and I've only ever seen it on television or read about it in books. The country house weekend. I used to love love any film or any book or anything where someone says, how many have we got for the weekend? Oh, not many, just 20 or so, just some people coming. Why don't you motor down for the weekend? I love the idea of someone getting in jumping in the two-seater and motoring down to Causeby Manor for the weekend.
I've always been in the world of butlering for many, many years now, and it is quite funny because the traditional, not just the royal family, the aristocracy, they have obviously the weekends, not just shoot weekends, they have weekends where guests get invited over, and it is that thing where you might end up with a house party of say 20, 22, 24. I mean, movies like Gosford Park were amazing, and Remains of the Day, which is why I went into the world of butlering. They nailed it. They got it so spot on, and it's extraordinary because you pack. There's obviously certain things you have to take. You've got to take your country kit, and you've got to take your corduroys and your dress shirts. There's no kind of shorts or t-shirts. God forbid. I think that the butlers would have a fit if suddenly somebody had flip-flops and a pair of shorts or something. But so there's dress codes and there's things to be done. But these traditions, this has been going on. I was talking to someone about it yesterday. I mean, this certainly goes back to the 19th century, very much a lot of the traditions today. And it's nice that they still do it. And I think there's some people that do get invited. It must be terrifying if you've never been to one and suddenly you get asked, irrelevant of what your background is, because the other wonderful thing about today is you can be from any background and find yourself in that situation. You don't have to be off of the aristocracy. And I'm sure I have people that will message me and email or phone who obviously know my background and they've been invited to something, and they'll say, Grant, help, I've been invited to X, Y, and Z. Well, what do I do? And it's lovely. I love it when people actually get these experiences because they're fun, and that's the important thing I say to them. Don't worry about getting it wrong. Of course, you might get something wrong, but especially if it's an invitation for something at the Palace of Sandringham or Balmoral, enjoy it, because that's the one thing I learned about my time with the royal family. When you're in there and you experience it, you forget to enjoy it. And then when you're then out and you've done it and you think back, you think, God, I was so lucky with the experiences, getting to... For me, being a kid, I always was an admirer of the Queen, and, one of my earliest dreams was to not only meet the Queen, you'll probably laugh, was to dance with the Queen, and that happened. And I remember when it happened, that was something I thought, I'll never forget this, and I haven't. I still think, whatever happens in the future, you kind of think, isn't it amazing to think I've had those experiences, and which I don't think many people can say they've got to experience those kind of things. So I do feel very lucky in all what I've done. And I'm still quite young, I'll quickly add. People normally think when they meet me, if I'm doing a talk, they expect me to be about 97, and when they meet me, they don't even know that I'm the one doing the talk, and they'll, unless they've seen me on some television program, and then when I actually say I'm Grant, the Royal Butler, they'll suddenly go, can you get gasps and things? And I'll say, yes, I'm actually 97, but I've got the best moisturising cream in the world, and I sell it at the end of the talk, and they love it. They love this kind of thing.
Because it is something that we should admire, and of course it's become very fashionable to poo-poo all those sort of things. It's a terrible thing. How could you be a servant? But when you mentioned Remains of the Day, which is a sensational book. When you think it was written, the actual book is sensational, and of course, being in service, as it was called back then, was a perfectly respectable occupation, and an occupation that was, had incredible rank system, that you could start off as an underfootman and become a butler.
Yeah.
And it was just
exactly, and it still happens to this day. You can start off as a pot washer at the palace and work your way up to the right hand person of even the Queen or a member of the royal family. So it still has those possibilities. And I know people say, but how can you be a servant? And I've never, I've always said this, even when I did the Country House series 20-odd years ago, I used to always say, it's not so much a servant, I see it as a job and I enjoy it. And looking after people or serving meals or being a valet, looking after clothes, I do all this for myself as well. You know, I'm very house proud. I like looking after my clothes. So whether I'm doing it for myself or someone else, I enjoy doing it. I must confess, sometimes when I lay on my table or if I press my clothes and put them away and then put them out to the following day, I like to think that I've got a very good butler doing it that nobody ever sees. So I have that little kind of joke to myself. But I love it's a really good profession. And the modern butlers today, there's a lot of prestige with it. And, you know, it can set you up, not just for the butler industry. It's such good life lessons going forward, especially if you're quite young and you decide to do, here I plug one of my courses. If you want to do a butler course, I run them, but other people run courses as well, and you do them. They're just such a great thing to actually have a go at doing and experience. You know, it's great experience. It's a real interesting insight.
Grant, I trust you've got your Christmas all planned into the most minute detail.
My butler will make sure the table's beautifully laid, the napkins are done, and the black tie is laid out.
I can see you walking along with that ruler.
I always have my ruler. It's always in my pocket, just in case. But I'm planning a quieter Christmas this year. I'll still be I'll do everything the way I do every year, lay tables and all the rest of it. But yes, I'm just having a nice quiet Christmas this year.
Well, God bless you. Have a lovely, lovely Christmas, and thank you so much for all the help you've given us this year. Thank you, Grant.
Likewise, Stan. I hope you get your invitation to Sandra and Sue at the next couple of days.
I shall hire a man for the weekend.
Absolutely.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.
On DAB, digital radio, online and on mobile.
This is Talk Radio.